seems ironic that while our finest young men are fighting halfway across the world, other young men and women, safe at home, openly advocate abandonment of Vietnam to communism. Perhaps they really don't know what this war is all about. In the words of a battle-weary young Marine, they would understand if they'd cross this 10,000 miles of ocean and live with us. A day in Vietnam. This day, this trip, is not to delineate the why of Vietnam. Rather, it is to see the what and the how of our military operations, to give you a deeper insight into this war and the way it is being fought. While the coordinated effort of all Americans in Vietnam is vital to success, it is the young men of our Navy Marine Corps team that we will see firsthand today, down there in Vietnam. We've landed on the big airfield at Da Nang and will travel directly to the headquarters of the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force for a briefing by the operations officer.
Gentlemen, I will give you a brief rundown on our present status in Vietnam, together with a thumbnail sketch of the initial landings and subsequent buildup. As you can see on this map, the 17th parallel divides North Vietnam from South Vietnam. Militarily speaking, South Vietnam is divided into 4 areas. The 4th Corps area in the south, the 3rd Corps, the 2nd Corps, and in the north, the 1st Corps, or as we call it, the I Corps area. The area within this I Corps is approximately 10,000 square miles with a beach line or coastline of 167 miles. The 3rd Marine Amphibious Force is responsible for all United States military operations in the I Corps area. Located here, in about the center of the I Corps area, is our major operational base of Da Nang. You will recall that it was at Da Nang that the initial landings were made by the 9th Marine Expeditionary Brigade. This is now our largest operational base. At about here, approximately 50 miles to the south of Da Nang, is the operational base at Chu Lai. The Marines and the Seabees have built a small airfield for tactical support. Our 3rd operational base is approximately 45 miles to the north of Da Nang. It is the base at Hue Phu Bai. Now, although the bulk of our Marines are located in or around these 3 bases, I want to point out that the Marines of the 3rd Amphibious Force have been fighting from one end of the I Corps area to the very other tip. With so many new and different things for you to see, it is difficult to sort them out in any order. However, it's quite easy to choose what you should see first. Our Marines. They're the finest.
These Marines have just returned from a tough battle in the north. They are now in a defensive perimeter. Their weapons are cleaned and cared for before a thought can be given to personal comfort. A matter of importance in the life of a professional fighting man. This is neither a clean nor an easy life for our men, but they've learned to accept the physical hardships of battle as their fathers did before them. In their famous hymn, Marines recount battles fought in every clime and place. Here in Vietnam, except for snow, they prove it. From the soft ooze of the rice paddies, they move on through swift-running canals and streams. Then push forward into the jungles that fringe the mountains, where elephant grass tears at the skin while vines tangle the feet and giant trees cut off the sun. But it's not just a matter of long walks in the tropical heat. Each and every step must be a cautious one, for the Viet Cong have prepared the way with mines and booby traps. So watch your step. A false one and your ankle is pierced by the nails of a crudely cunning trap that only digs deeper as you fight to pull away. A hidden shell sits waiting for the unwary foot. And you'll never know which innocent-looking piece of grass or fern covers a pit of sharpened, poison-tipped bamboo spikes. Marine engineers must constantly sweep the roads and trails in search of killer mines. The troops must provide a screen of security behind which Americans can assist the Vietnamese in the revolutionary rebuilding of their nation. It is necessary to constantly patrol the outlying villages and countryside to deny re-entry to the Viet Cong. Marines initiate literally hundreds of small patrols and ambushes throughout the I Corps area each week. But one of the most difficult jobs in this war without a front is to distinguish friend from foe. Each person must be carefully searched and identified. Whether VC are turned up by such scrutiny or captured in combat, they are treated with scrupulous fairness under the international rules of the Geneva Convention. Marines have found that such treatment of an often cruel enemy frequently results in the proffering of information that reveals the whereabouts of an enemy force. In possession of such knowledge, Marines react quickly. Plans are rapidly formulated, and a striking force moves out swiftly. As they move in on the enemy position, they are met by intensive small arms fire. It results in some casualties, but the attack is carried to the enemy stronghold. The Viet Cong are well dug in. The command decision is to call for artillery fire support to dislodge them. The observer gives the exact location to ensure the safety of friendly elements close by. Troops can make the final assault and move in to destroy the enemy equipment and supplies. Many of the hamlets our troops approach are known to be friendly, but even they must be approached cautiously, for emotional reactions are primal when villagers are first confronted by men with weapons. A Vietnamese farmer's entire world is a thatched hut, a small rice paddy, his wife and children. For the past quarter of a century, his village has been a battleground, completely isolated by Viet Cong destroyed bridges and mined roads. The VC wanted food. They took his rice. They wanted soldiers. They shanghaied his sons. His village chief objected and was beheaded. His neighbors who protested were beaten. He can trust no one. The Viet Cong told him the Marines would come to seize homes, murder children, and enslave entire families. Anyone who helped Americans, the VC said, would be tortured and killed. So, quite naturally, trust and confidence grow slowly, nurtured by little acts of mercy, by promises fulfilled. Surely the stranger who binds one's wounds does not intend to murder, and always the Marine's first question is, what can we do to help you? Fear is replaced by hope and the desire to build for the future. Marines work side by side with the village people, constructing churches, hospitals, and schools. American generosity provides the building tools, even the very bricks and mortar. Through many civic action funds, and the Marine Corps Reserve Care Program is one of them, Americans are giving unstintingly to help in this rebuilding of a nation and its people. In classrooms such as this, children and adults too are learning for the first time of the vast potentials of our free and democratic system. It is on this other front in the battle to win the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese people that will be determined the kind of world their children, and our children too, will come to inherit. The Navy corpsman with his bar of soap and his bag of medical gear already is well loved by the Vietnamese people, symbol of America's helping hand. But he is only one of 100,000 Navy men committed to the war in Vietnam. For many of the Blue Jackets, it's an unusual new kind of shallow water warfare, operating fast, small boats, ground effects machines, and shallow draft transports. They hunt down and destroy the waterborne Viet Cong and act as advisors to the Vietnamese Navy as they move their troops along the water high roads for an attack on a riverside VC encampment. The deep blue of the China Sea is the backbone of our Navy's surface forces, the aircraft carrier. It's a floating mobile airbase complex. Over 4,000 men live and work on this seagoing city. To keep the ship in operation and its pilots in the air requires the effort of a community of freemen, engineers, clerks, doctors, mechanics, pipe fitters, radar men, cooks, and bakers. Their working day averages 12 hours. It can be 18 or even longer when air operations are underway and planes are being sent aloft at 30-second intervals. Combat sorties over North Vietnam have been flown by Navy and Marine pilots. It's a dangerous job, and sometimes not all the planes come safely back. A search and rescue helicopter hurries on its way when that radioed distress call, Mayday, signals a pilot in trouble. He could be down in the open sea or deep in the jungle. Their job is to find him and bring him back. On this mission, photographed by a Navy cameraman, the pilot was forced to eject beside a rocky cliff along the forbidding coastline a few miles south of Haiphong. The helicopter cannot get close enough for a direct lift, so a swimmer hits the water. Search and rescue is costly, difficult, and dangerous, but the value placed on a single life makes any effort worthwhile. Many other ships accompany the carrier. One such is the destroyer, the tin can, workhorse of the fleet, indispensable to the Marines ashore and the Navy at sea. In Vietnam, the skillful placement of supporting fire from destroyers has often been a vital factor in the success of Marine infantry operations ashore. Another fleet operation in the South China Sea is the Amphibious Task Force. It supports teams of Marines and their helicopters that collectively are known as the Special Landing Force. The SLF operates from a specially designed ship that is a combination troop ship and helicopter carrier called an LPH. With almost lightning speed, the Special Landing Force can strike from the sky by helicopter and across the beach by amphibian vehicles in a highly effective two-pronged assault. The SLF has been employed at many points along the coast of South Vietnam. These Marines are part of the air attack group in the operation in which we're going to participate today. As they head toward land and a new battlefield, the minds of the fighting men are occupied with their own thoughts, their own prayers. Even for those who have taken part in many previous operations, the race toward a new unknown always carries with it that special feeling in the pit of the stomach. We fly above the beach assault force, for our helicopter landing zone is well inland, behind the enemy position. We expect to catch him by surprise. The helicopter force will block him from escaping toward the west, while the beach assault group offloads swiftly, then moves inland to play the hammer against the anvil. As Marines push through the jungle, they must overcome natural obstacles as well as the enemy hiding someplace in the dense growth. A river to cross is a welcome coolness, but its waters support a myriad of leeches that slip inside clothing to fasten on the skin. The wounds they leave are easily infected in this tropical climate. In deep jungle ravines, the troopers slip down and climb back endlessly for every foot they advance. Now you are with them, and watch where you step and where you grab. A movement in the shadow beneath you could be a vicious giant rodent. A harmless-looking vine might be a poisonous snake. Even the trees in this rainforest are hostile. They grow so thick their triple canopies bring darkness at noon. Hang on to the man in front of you, or you're lost in this midnight gloom. Then, suddenly, out of the misty darkness, contact. The enemy has good position and appears to be superior in numbers, so the Marines call in their equalizers, their support from the sky. This is the moment for which these pilots have been prepared, for which they've been ready and waiting. Approaching the target area, contact is made with the forward air controller. This Marine is an aviator attached to a ground unit. He gives the pilots all the information they need to provide pinpoint close air support for the ground troops, a Marine Corps specialty. Needed to even up the odds, and the infantry action is positive and powerful in destroying the remaining enemy. We have our casualties, but our fatalities from combat-inflicted wounds have been cut to less than 2% because of the speed with which a wounded man can be moved from the battle zone to skilled surgical help. While the Navy corpsman gives emergency aid, a medevac team is being brought in by that mechanical angel of mercy called the helicopter. Usually less than 30 minutes after being hit, a seriously wounded man is in the operating room, either at a field hospital or aboard the USS Repose, a hospital ship that has been a welcome addition to our medical facilities in the combat zone. The gleaming white ship carries everything that would be found in the most modern hospital ashore. A full staff of doctors, nurses, and corpsmen functions with the same efficiency as the crew that moves the ship into the area where the action is. Though battle wounds are the cause of most of the serious casualties, there are many more that result from the environment. Heat prostration, immersion foot, malaria. These can be as devastating to our combat effectiveness as bullets or pungi pits. But the knowledge that quick and sure care is close at hand helps keep morale high in the rice paddies. Red Cross, which symbolizes our medical units, is not the only cross in Vietnam. Wherever the Marines and sailors go, the chaplain also goes. Whether it is for moral and spiritual counseling, a friendly word to a lonely man, or the softening of unpleasant news from home, the chaplain is on the scene. Be it a stretch of sand or a clearing in the jungle, it becomes a church as he sets up his altar. The men gather to worship in the same familiar routine of devotion as their families back home. As he holds service, the chaplain cannot dismiss the thought, will they all return? He knows full well they won't all come back alive. Prayers are said, a letter is written home to the family, yet so little can be done for this one who was given so much. There will be no more tales of his exciting adventure in a far-off land. No more plans for his education, his family, his home. He may have been a lad, not quite a man in years, but he gave us a man's greatest treasure, his life, and he gave it not unknowingly. These men prove every day they understand the why of Vietnam. Listen to a few letters written home by these young men, some of whom have since been killed.
Those boys who are burning their draft cards, marching in protest, getting married, and hiding behind an education just show me that they aren't mature enough to accept the responsibility of being an American, and therefore they don't deserve to be called Americans. Mom, I don't want to die over here, but if that is what it takes to make the world a better place for you and Dad and everyone to live, then giving my life won't be in vain.
I try to love my fellow man, no matter who or what he is. I find it hard to believe that American men and women really object to U.S. servicemen being here in Vietnam. If those people who parade, protest, didn't tell us we're fighting a useless war had to live without their freedom, they changed their point of view. Please don't think I'm trying to talk or act like a hero, because I'm far from it. I'm just trying to do my part in this war. But it's a war that I'd gladly give my life for if it'd help bring freedom to the people here and help it grow stronger in our own country. The day I left home to come over here, I kissed my kids goodbye and my wife had tears in her eyes. I'm just like thousands of other servicemen here in Vietnam who dream of seeing our families and loved ones again. I do not wish to die here, but I have no fear of death. I know my God is real, and my trust and faith is in Him. Keep praying for me, as I shall pray for you.
It's a lousy war, as is any war, but it's going to be fought sometime, someplace. I hate to see what it's doing to these poor people here in Vietnam, but I'd rather be here than in Minnesota. If and when my time to go comes, I will go. I'll go because I know the meaning of the word freedom. I'll go because I love my family, I love my country, and I love my God. Call it any name you will, from foolishness to sacrifice, but be sure to include love.
This is the end of our day in Vietnam. A glimpse of the war as it is being waged all day, every day, by these young men who are growing up in a hurry. 18, 19, 20 years old. They were boys when they got here. They've become men overnight. The suffering, hardships, and sorrow they bear, not only their own, but what they see in others around them, has helped to make them compassionate, tolerant, and mature. The young men who comprise the vast bulk of our Navy and our Marine Corps, who are seldom seen on television, who are rarely interviewed by the press, these men are, as they have always been, the truly strong men of our nation. Only a couple of years ago, these young men would have been embarrassed to tell what patriotism meant to them, how much they loved their homes, their God, their country. Now they daily risk their lives for their beliefs. This vast cross-section of America, it's young, tired, gallant fighting men. This is not only the face of America, this is the heart of America. They will return, most of them, but that valiant heart will keep beating only if it is nourished and sustained by the rest of America. And these, then, are the true heroes of the war, the young men of your Navy and your Marine Corps. Whatever they are, and ultimately, whatever our country is, we owe to them and their brothers in the other services, past, present, and future.
Okay, move out.
Skies over Vietnam come the Screaming Eagles, the heroic paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division. Their fabled exploits during World War II can never be forgotten. In December 1944, outnumbered and surrounded by the Germans at Bastogne, the men of the 101st courageously fought on. When the Germans ordered them to surrender or be annihilated, their acting commander, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, gave the historic reply, nuts, and they stood until the Germans were defeated. It is in this same tradition that the men of the Screaming Eagles 1st Brigade today serve on the jungle battlefront of Vietnam. On a warm spring day in 1965, several Army aviation companies arrive in Vietnam aboard the carrier USS Iwo Jima. It is the beginning of the Army's air mobility buildup, the first of the assault helicopters, which soon will fill the air over this embattled land. Even as the pilots of the 101st Aviation Battalion whirl away toward the field at Vung Tau, all of South Vietnam is infested with Viet Cong. From the north, they stream down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and like a disease, spread throughout the Southern Republic. Into this setting come the first of the Screaming Eagles, the aviation crews of Company A, forerunners in the massive American military buildup to stop the communist enemy. For the Republic, this is a time of desperation. Here at Vung Tau Airfield, 40 miles southeast of Saigon, the job begins for these airmen. Along with helicopter crews from other aviation companies, the men of the 101st are to be processed for movement to their new homes in the forward areas of Vietnam, is to create the helicopter bases from which U.S. Army forces can be flown into combat against the Viet Cong. Quickly now, they make ready. In the next 90 days, before the airborne infantry arrives, these men will do a man-sized job. On the 29th of July, 1965, the 1st Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division arrives at Cam Ranh Bay. The brigade, with its supporting elements, is commanded by Colonel James Timothy, who is welcomed to Vietnam by Ambassador Maxwell Taylor. And by General William Westmoreland. In the ceremonies which follow, Colonel Timothy gets his first look at the strife-torn shores of Vietnam. And for the first time, the brigade unfurls the proud emblem of freedom over the land it is here to protect. To Ambassador Taylor, the occasion holds a special meaning. as the one-time commander of the 101st talks to his son, Captain Thomas Taylor, now a member of the Screaming Eagles. Concluding the day's events, some of the airborne infantrymen stage a parachute jump for Ambassador Taylor and General Westmoreland. It is to be one of the few jumps these paratroopers will make in Vietnam. The Screaming Eagles descend toward the earth and the unknown hardships of jungle warfare they will face in the months ahead. Within 2 weeks after their arrival at Cam Ranh Bay, the Screaming Eagles are sent northward on their first combat operation. As they sail for Quy Nhon, 130 miles up the coast, it is mid-August, and the brigade hasn't yet had time to establish its permanent home base in Vietnam. While the Vietnamese are celebrating the Lantern Festival, the men of the 327th and 502nd are moving inland from Quy Nhon to An Khê in the Central Highlands. Their mission is to clear and secure the An Khê area as a base camp for the U.S. 1st Cavalry Division Air Mobile, which will be arriving from the United States in a matter of days. At Deo Mang Pass, overlooking An Khê, the landings begin. After months of special training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, this is it. The moment every man knew would come. A Viet Cong main force battalion has been reported in the area, and the airborne infantrymen expect instant contact. But it doesn't come. The Viet Cong are evasive, biding their time. It is an anticlimax for the men. This is their first lesson in Vietnam. No big battles when expected. Instead, a nagging war of attrition with primitive booby traps and snipers, small unit actions and ambushes in the jungle. Only when he thinks the situation is favorable will the enemy show himself in force. So the long, hard task of ferreting out the communist enemy begins. And the Screaming Eagles are good at their job. By the end of September, they will kill 600 Viet Cong. It will be a difficult thing, and some of these airborne fighting men will die. But the job, for this time, will be done. As the advance elements of the 1st Cavalry Division begin arriving at An Khê, they commence taking over the area secured by the Screaming Eagles. Finally, the men of the 101st Airborne are free to head south and establish their own home base in Vietnam. From An Khê and the Central Highlands, the brigade moves 170 miles to the coastal town of Phan Rang. This is to be their permanent camp as soon as it can be built. Though weary from their campaign in the hill country, they work throughout October until the base at Phan Rang has been set up. General Westmoreland visits the Screaming Eagles on Thanksgiving Day, 1965, and inspects the camp at Phan Rang. He is pleased with their performance at An Khê and congratulates them on a job well done. Even as he returns to Saigon, the brigade is conducting local search and clear operations. As the new year begins, the entire brigade is deployed to Tuy Hoa, 100 miles to the north in Phu Yen province. Known as the Rice Bowl, this is the richest rice-growing region in central Vietnam. From this fertile area come crops to feed all the people of central Vietnam. But the Viet Cong have been seizing the harvest and collecting unbearable taxes from the frightened farmers. Now come the Screaming Eagles to protect the rice harvest and stop the Viet Cong. Codename Operation Van Buren. The orders read, search out the enemy in the Tuy Hoa sector and destroy him. This assignment will be tedious. The VC desert their dwellings and avoid confrontation with the Americans. Yet the district is infested with an enemy who makes night raids and continues to molest the farmers. The search goes on. Brigadier General Willard Pearson takes over command of the Screaming Eagles on the 29th of January, 1966. He steps up the pressure on the Viet Cong. Across the broad reaches of VIễn province, the Viet Cong are pursued. For the most part, they evade capture and withdraw to disappear in hidden underground sanctuaries. In the wake of U.S. military operations, the enemy rice raids diminish. But the VC themselves mingle with the local people and often are bypassed, attacking our units from the rear at night. On 8 February, the Deputy Commander of the U.S. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, Lieutenant General John Hankes, comes to Tuy Hoa to personally evaluate the situation. What he sees convinces him that the enemy is well entrenched in the district, that it will require repeated efforts by the 101st to dislodge these communist guerrillas. Operation Van Buren becomes Operation Harrison. February becomes March, and daily the Screaming Eagles patrol the jungles and foothills surrounding the rice fields of Tuy Hoa. Enemy main force headquarters are located and hit by the U.S. Air Force with B-52 bombing raids. The men of the brigade go in to check the results and prepare field reports for Air Force intelligence. Daily they go out, and daily they return. In 90 days, the men of the brigade gain control of the Tuy Hoa region. Now operating in small units, they kill 516 hardcore Viet Cong troops between February and April. The rice crops are saved. Once, early in March, the men of the brigade receive a surprise visit from one of Hollywood's movie heroes, Robert Mitchum. During this enjoyable interlude, there is talk about the glamorous girls of the film world. Mr. Mitchum is given the opportunity to fire some of the weapons of the real-life heroes in Vietnam. In mid-April 1966, the 2nd Battalion of the 327th is left to guard the rice harvest at Tuy Hoa, and the rest of the brigade moves out on Operation Austin. 2 weeks in the area around Phan Thiet, then onward to Nang Co, near the Cambodian border. Here, where the Ho Chi Minh Trail enters South Vietnam, the Screaming Eagles meet the 141st Regiment of the North Vietnamese Army. For a while, the fighting is intense. The 502nd Airborne Infantry takes a number of casualties. It takes 6 days, from the 14th to the 20th of May, for the U.S. paratroopers to drive the North Vietnamese aggressors out of their positions in the foothills of Nang Co. The communist regulars are well-disciplined, well-equipped, and tenacious. In spite of heavy ground fire, Army aviators get in with their dust-off helicopters, and the wounded are whisked away to safety. This is the enemy. When he was captured, he was carrying a machine gun made in Czechoslovakia. He won't be using it again. As for his comrades, they have been put to rout, and in their hasty flight, they have dropped their arms. Over 100 of the North Vietnamese lie dead in the mountains. Victory at Nang Co is ours. But for the Screaming Eagles, the greatest testing is still to come. Far to the north in Con Tum province, the brigade launches Operation Hawthorne in the area around Dak To. Con Tum is a forbidding wilderness lying in the foothills of the mountain country which marks the border of Cambodia. It is the first week of June, and the air is heavy and humid. Until now, the enemy has held sway here. "30 miles north of the little town of Dak To, the airborne engineers erect a crude bridge. A few miles beyond lies an American Special Forces camp. It has been under siege by the Viet Cong for nearly a week. Supplies and ammunition are badly needed, and relief troops must get through. The first of the trucks begins crossing. Near the bridge, the men of B Battery, 320th Artillery, prepare for another firing mission. Throughout the morning, they have rained howitzer shells upon the enemy forces attacking the camp. Now, with fresh supplies of ammunition, they're ready to begin again. Each time the shelling starts, the enemy withdraws his attacking forces to escape the punishing fires. When it is lifted, he regroups and again tries to take the camp. Despite week-long airstrikes by U.S. Air Force jets, the Viet Cong have shown no signs of withdrawing. But the artillery fire, directed by those defending the outpost, is having a telling effect. The screaming eagles are under fire. The enemy has come to silence the guns. Communist fire comes from everywhere. Out there, the enemy is creeping in. He will try to overrun the American positions. The waiting is agony. Then the enemy makes his move. This is it. Live or die. In the forefront, General Pearson, the boss, here in hell. From Bastogne to Vietnam, the tradition remains unbroken, magnificent. The Screaming Eagle. The battle wanes. A small part of Operation Hawthorne is over. Some of the men of the 101st will fight no more. But for this day, the bastions of freedom held. They came from the north, a full battalion. Their weapons, not ours, have been silenced. Throughout the oppressive days and nights of June 1966, Operation Hawthorne continued. In the violent conflict which rages in Kon Tum province, the Screaming Eagles repeatedly beat back prize troop units of the North Vietnamese Army. In 16 straight days of combat, the brigade envelops the 24th North Vietnamese Army Regiment, and more than 500 of the communist aggressors are killed. It is the largest single battle of the war for the men of the 101st. The bitter struggle to preserve the freedom of this little Asian nation is made more bearable as each man is enriched in spirit and strengthened in his resolve. At last, the fighting is done. All the world had heard about the gallant Screaming Eagles and the battles of Operation Hawthorne. In recognition of their outstanding victory in KHôNG province, the Premier of South Vietnam, Nguyen Cao Ky, comes to the little town of Dak To. Premier Ky and the Deputy Premier express the gratitude of their nation in a way that fighting men can understand. These are some of the weapons taken from the enemy, the Premier is told. In the hands of the communists, the arms of China, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Russia, and even a variety of United States, French, and British weapons, which had fallen into those same enemy hands. Living evidence of the North Vietnamese regular army, 6 out of the 22 taken alive by the Screaming Eagles. Premier Ky confronts the aggressors. "You are lucky the Americans have taken you," he smiled. On the 21st of July, following surveillance operations along the Laotian and Cambodian borders, the brigade returns to Tuy Hoa. A new operation labeled John Paul Jones gets underway. Its purpose is to open and secure a 16-mile stretch of National Highway 1 between Tuy Hoa and Vung Ro Bay on the coast. The accomplishment of this mission will speed up logistic support of the Tuy Hoa area by permitting ships to unload at the nearby bay. It begins with elements of the 502nd Infantry landing at the cliff-guarded Vung Ro Bay, where, without encountering resistance, they begin moving inland to link up with the oncoming units of the 327th. The inland forces push forward, securing the highway and sweeping the adjoining countryside. Supported by helicopter gunships, heliborne assault troops clean out the operational zone within 6 weeks. By early September 1966, they have secured Vung Ro Bay and Highway 1 north to Tuy Hoa. Sweeping through the mountains, the brigade captures 40 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong and kills 209 others. While Operation John Paul Jones is still in progress, the engineers begin construction work on the connecting highway between Vung Ro Bay and Highway 1. The Screaming Eagles have done their job well, and a new seaport is born. In the weeks which follow, the brigade protects the rice farmers as they harvest some 17,000 metric tons of the precious grain. Once again, the Tuy Hoa sector becomes a battlefield, and the Viet Cong suffer heavy losses, with 239 killed and 42 captured. The Viet Cong have had enough. They are nowhere to be found. "11 Vietnamese are found, however, in a Viet Cong prison camp. They have apparently received no medical attention while in the hands of the communists. Held by the Viet Cong for several months, their ailments range from open sores and skin infections to malnutrition, as well as deformities caused by unset broken bones. This man, a former Viet Cong who defected to the Republic and was later captured by the VC, cannot tell of his unspeakable nightmare with the enemy. On the 9th of December, the odyssey of the brigade continues. From Tuy Hoa, back up north to Con Tum province. The Viet Cong have been cleared from Phu Yen province by this time, and the Screaming Eagles are moved to the north in a record 48 hours by the U.S. Air Force. The deployment of the brigade by means of parachute marks the first jump in more than a year for many of the men. But they're in superb physical condition, and the jump goes well. As 1966 draws to a close, the brigade descends upon Con Tum province to take part in Operation Picket, fighting side by side with Vietnamese army forces and militia. The men of the 101st once again will scour the countryside, finding and finishing the enemy. The operations in Con Tum province continue until the 21st of January, 1967. Then, after more than a year's absence from their home base at Van Rang, the brigade is ordered back for a rest. It seems a long time since the LSTs first moved the brigade up to Kinh Nhông as they headed for their first combat around An Khê. Now, the LSTs are taking them home. On the 26th, the last convoy rolls into camp at Van Rang. Brigadier General Willard Pearson welcomes the men home. It will be one of his last official acts as brigade commander. Two days later, General Pearson transfers command of the 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division to the new brigade commander, Brigadier General S.H. Matheson. The battle-hardened troops watch with solemn pride as Lieutenant General Engler pins the Legion of Merit on the uniform of their departing commander. So the Screaming Eagles bid farewell to the commander who led them in 14 combat operations from one end of Vietnam to the other. For the Screaming Eagles, as for the rest of the United States military forces in Vietnam, the valiant effort to keep that young nation free continues. However far removed from our shores, the conflict between those who cherish human dignity and those who would snuff it out affects us all. In this belief, the gallant men of the United States Army stand steadfast, not only in Southeast Asia, but wherever they may be asked to serve in freedom's cause.
It is June 1967. The place is the South China Sea near the coast of Vietnam. The USS Harnett County has sailed 10,000 miles from the western shore of the United States and has arrived at the CHÂNG River in the Mekong Delta. The war that lies ahead for these men will be on the rivers and rice paddies of this ancient land. For the next 12 months, they will launch patrol boats and armed helicopters against the enemy. They will search from the skies and patrol 1,000 miles of waterways to fight the Viet Cong. This is their story. It begins here on the land, amid the lace-like structure of canal and waterway. This is the heartland of South Vietnam, the Mekong Delta. Here, where the mangrove forests stretch as far as the eye can see, where lush farms and rice paddies dot the land, the Viet Cong exercise a shadow tyranny over the people, using the age-old tactics of force and terror.
044 Ironhead 2, are you coming in at this time, over?
That's affirmative. Give me a green deck and I'm on my way in.
Ironhead 2, roger. Green deck, wind 0354, 9 knots, over.
244, I'm on my way in.
Ironhead 2, roger, out.
Yankee Echo, Yankee Hotel, over.
These men and others like them have come here to aid this small nation caught in the midst of war. And in an age that boasts of science and technology, what they accomplish here will still depend on the courage and skill of each of them. The ship is 2 miles from the mouth of the CHÅNG River, 2 miles from the place her real work begins. Navigation here is dangerous. There is a possibility of running aground on the treacherous shoals and sandbars created by the mud and silt of the river. Added to this danger is the fact that the Viet Cong are entrenched in this area, and up until now have roamed the waters almost at will. For the 278 men that comprise this ship, this is the last leg of a long journey. It is a lonely time. San Francisco and Seattle are far behind. The sights and sounds of a once familiar world have given way to the ominous quiet of the nearby jungle shore. The first patrols leave the ship at dawn, and the men fall into the routine that will govern their lives in the months to come. Words like patrol and reconnaissance, words that were once part of their training, here on the river become part of their lives. Far below, the unfamiliar stretches from horizon to horizon. Beneath them lies another world, one of uncertainty and danger. The job has begun.
Officer Chen, report.
A war does not depend on ceremony, yet even in this place, a few short yards from Viet Cong territory, there is time for morning quarters. Here on the ship, you get up to reveille and stand in line to get your food. You live and work with other men in the crowded space of an iron hull, and you adjust to the formalities of shipboard life. But for many, the formalities end when their work begins. Their job is on the river, and for the next 16 hours, their home will be a small, armed, fiberglass boat, which will carry them far from the safety and comforts of the ship. Their mission is to search, to patrol the waterways and canals of the Delta, to keep the enemy off the river. In the Mekong Delta, the river is the key to the land. To the Vietnamese who live here and use it every day, it is the heart of their existence. It nourishes their crops, provides a route to the marketplace, and sustains their families. These waters are the highways of commerce, and there are over 5,000 miles of natural and man-made canals that wander past cities, villages, and hamlets. But if these waters provide a way of life for the people, they also provide a means of transportation to their enemy. The Viet Cong use the rivers to carry arms, ammunition, and supplies, and to extort taxes from the people. The Viet Cong have used innocent-looking sampans and even children to lure the patrol boats into ambush. And the men have learned from bitter experience that they cannot relax for a moment. A hidden hand grenade, a concealed rifle, these are the hallmark of the enemy and the stamp of guerrilla warfare. Until boats are thoroughly searched, everyone must be suspect. You cannot always tell a Viet Cong by looking or even talking to him. They wear no uniforms, only the black clothes of the peasants. So all boats on the river must be stopped and searched. It's a tedious and dangerous job. 200, 300 sampans are checked every day. You talk with the people, listen to their gossip, and try to get information that may lead to the enemy. It's like a puzzle. A man with an identity card from a too distant province, or a woman with too large a load of rice for just her family. You may not speak their language very well, but you see things, find clues, and try to put them together. Time by counting the hours since you left the ship. 16, 18 hours a day. Far from home and far from the sea, you cover endless miles of water accompanied only by the constant drone of diesel engines. Far from the ports of call, the men labor at the task of keeping a ship fit and her weapons ready. Technology has provided the tools and the training, but men provide the work. Equipment must be cared for and maintained. Each hour of patrol means additional hours of tedious, back-breaking work. There is no room for error. In the days that follow, the lives of others will depend on the performance and patience of these men. Away from the main deck, men pass their rare free time by playing cards, answering a long overdue letter, or reading an outdated magazine. But the vigil continues. A modern naval vessel is more than guns and bullets, steel and black oil. The men aboard her have been trained to perform all the services of a small town. The Navy corpsman is the doctor here, and drugs and medicine are the tools of his profession. But to a people like the Vietnamese, a people who live in the shadow of poverty and disease, medicine And men like the corpsmen offer hope for a better life. The men have come 30 miles to the village of CHөнгon the CHŏNG River. Most Vietnamese live in a village like this one. A community of 2,000 who work the land, raise livestock, and ply their local trades. But their otherwise simple lives are complicated by disease and infection. The corpsman has set up a clinic in the playground of the local school, where patients have already gathered.
Use the soap and rainwater. Then you have him spread this on the areas that are itchy, so that he'll run. How many times? How about twice a day?
Cái đây mỗi ngày đấy, ông lấy ông rửa cái chung hứa đó, ngày 2 lần, nhé, rửa xong rồi xích cái này lên. Còn cái lấy cái này cứ 4 giờ uống 2 viên thôi.
Yeah, anytime.
Cái này bạn uống một ngày 1 viên.
And then 2 every 4 hours. Or something for her headache. Oh, wait a minute. Did she have a bottle? Did she have a bottle of ointment?
Yes.
Okay.
There are no monuments to what is accomplished here. There is no glory. But in this war, the work done here has become as important as any battle. Days become weeks. Weeks give way to long months on the river. A new season comes to the Mekong Delta. Monsoons begin in the east, move westward, and cloak the land in torrential rains. Wind and rain intrude into the life of every man, soaking everything, wearing away at the nerves. Pumps clog, motors fail, ammunition corrodes, and guns rust. For days, there is no pause, only the constant sound of rain against metal. But the work of war goes on. The enemy has used the rains to his advantage. 2 companies of Viet Cong have been discovered on the shores of the Ba Lai Canal, digging bunkers for an ambush.
Give us the word.
Within the next few
A plan is made. Patrol boats will transit the canal and act as decoys to force an encounter with the enemy. The ship's helicopters will remain on board, fueled and armed, ready for action.
Charlie will expend a little more energy than he has been. So I want you people to be extremely cautious on the rivers.
The risks of entering a narrow canal are great. These shallow zones of water are the haven of the Viet Cong. Boats are forced to move slowly, becoming easy targets for enemy fire. Unforeseen circumstances often dictate strategy. Despite all their preparation and planning, the men must turn back. The water has become too shallow. They are forced to find another route.
Turn port 180. Juliet, this is Iron Hat 2. Roger out. Bridge, this is radio. Scramble the helos. Okay, Bill. Check the fuel boost pump. Are we clear? Coming hot. Turn forward 180.
4-3, Matty Reed. This is 4-3, read you 5. What's the story? This is 4-3, interrogative, your intentions this time. This Kilo, we're still receiving automatic weapons fire from the beach there. This is 4-3, do you have the smoke on the beach? This Kilo, that's affirmative, over. Roger, that's the target area there. Kilo, roger. Now, this is Kilo, we'll make a fire run, over. Kilo, this is 4-3. Let me know when you commence your run, and we'll come in behind you there. Smoke in sight there. We received automatic weapons fire from the beach side and also from the tree line on either side of the smoke running from north to south, over. Also, this is 4-3, be advised they have a 157 recoilless in there, over.
The ordeal of this battle is over, but the victory has not yet been won. There is no rest now for these men. The enemy has shown himself. They must act quickly, decisively, to deny him his sanctuary. New targets out of reach of the PBRs have been located by the Vietnamese command center. Enemy gun emplacements, bunkers, and supply sampans.
801. I see what's happening. 905.
In this engagement, one of the helicopters was shot down by a sniper in a sampan. This is the price a few will pay in any war, the cost of involvement. And for the remainder of their tour in Vietnam, these men will pay this price time and again. They have faced the enemy. They have endured the ordeal of battle. They have won their badge of courage. A wounded man comes in on a stretcher. Another call to battle. Tracers cutting the stillness of a twilight sky, stabbing at the fleeting shadow of a faceless enemy. The smoke and flame of burning cordite, and the darkness of men at war. fight will go on. But these sailors, these worn and weary men, have kept the faith.